Next up, we are honored to welcome Julie Tang. Julie Tang is a retired San Francisco Superior Court judge and the co-founder of Pivot to Peace. She has paved the way for Asian Americans and women's rights for decades, and we are excited to have her share her wisdom and passion here with us. Please, everyone, welcome the Honorable Julie Tang.
I'm going to keep my mask on. Is that all right?
Yeah!
It is so wonderful, so thrilling to be here among the young people, especially young people of strength, young people who have self-confidence in themselves, young people who want to share not just their strength, but their compassion for humanity. I applaud you. I also applaud Hudson for coming up with the idea of Asians are strong, and we are not the weak men of Asia. We're the strong men and women of Asia and the world. You know, I came to this country in 1967. I've had my share of being discriminated, facing racism, and being called to go back to China. And when they say that, I said, go to hell, you, okay? But I have never, in the 53 years that I've been in this country, longer than you were born, many of you, that I feel the sense of danger that I feel now, the danger for my own personal safety, the danger for all your safety if you look Asian. I am really very, very concerned about that. I think our country is out of control. We have no way to protect its citizens. When America fires a gun at China, that can come right back to the Asian Americans. We are the first casualty of the American-US-China Cold War. I will talk a little bit more about that later. But right now, I wanted to share with you how painful and anxious I was when I saw on the video an Asian man being pummeled. You saw that video, right? In the New York subway train. And then held up with his neck, choked until he was unconscious. Does anybody know what happened to him? I try to find out. Some rumor is that he died. Other rumor is that his family just wanted to be private. I respect that. But I think that if any one of you were in that position, I hope that you would fight back as hard as you could. Because we have to fight back. We really have to be strong. And we have to show that we are not going to take it. Now, in addition to that, just last week alone, a Filipino woman was kicked on the head and left on the floor. And security guards seeing her close the door on her. A Texas man was walking on the streets with his family, and a car took a veer and rushed at him and killed him as a hit and run. These are the things that are happening every single day, and more things that are happening that you don't even know about. Up to the 4,000 cases that have been reported, self-reported, are only the tip of the iceberg. Because I know for sure there's so many more cases that were unreported. My neighbor was walking and somebody looked at him, he's Chinese, and said, "You Chinese mother F something." You know what I'm saying, right? My girlfriend was waiting in a restaurant. Some young white woman, half her age, went up to her and said, "If you want to stay in this country, you speak English." And one day, when I was outside picking up my newspaper, some man had a dog peeing on my front lawn. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Go back to China." So again, you know what I said? Go to hell. And I was on the radio just 2 days ago, Chinese radio station. A lot of the Chinese immigrants called in. And I'm glad somebody talked about the Chinese immigrants. The first generation, our fathers, our grandfathers, our mothers, our grandmothers. They are the ones who are really at the bottom of the ladder right now. They are having it the worst. One after another called into the radio station and told me how they're being bullied, how they're being pushed around. Mr. Yi, he told me that after having been bullied, he wanted to commit suicide. I broke down when he said that. I think we really need to protect them. We need to have language access for them to report to, because they don't even know how to work on the computer. They do not know how to speak the English. So they're always at a disadvantage. And they're always being bullied, and they're the invisible minorities there. I was so glad to hear people talk about the Cambodians, the Laotians, the Vietnamese, because I am reminded as they were speaking, in 1989, a white gunman went into Stockton Elementary School and started firing. 5 children were killed, 28 were injured, and they were all Cambodian and Laotians. They were the refugees who came to this country because of the US aggression in Vietnam, and they came here because we allowed them to come here because of our travesty, but then we killed them. It is just horrible. Talking about historical racism, the worst lynching in this country in the last century was against Chinese in Los Angeles, Chinatown. 19 Chinese men were hanged to death by a white mob. I don't know who these Chinese men were. I really wonder who they were. Maybe they were the leaders of the community, or maybe they were just fighting off, and then they were not allowed to do that, so they hung them. And then in Rock Springs in Wyoming, 28 coal miners were killed because they were, according to the white man, doing jobs for longer hours and for lower pay, so taking away the white man's job. And they were also eating different food than they eat rice, and the white man ate bread, and they spoke a different language, and they're so difficult to assimilate. So they start massacres in Wyoming, in Tacoma, Washington, and also in Los Angeles, and also in San Francisco. And then they passed the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882, which Chinese people were the only race in America, in the history of America, that were banned as a race for immigration. And that lasted for 83 years until 1965. Many of your grandparents or parents come after 1965 because of that Chinese Exclusion Act. The Chinese Exclusion Act, the massacres and the expulsions, all culminated because of the anti-Chinese sentiments that were spread both nationally and regionally. And I think that we have the same pattern now being repeated. In the last 40 years, we had some peace and quiet. Why? Because the United States and China were having a good deal going. Whereas China is sending us all these cheap goods, we're paying and we're wearing cheap clothes, and a lot of the manufacturers are making lots of money. But then when things went sour, when the economics are not doing good, then we turn on China. And now with the US-China relationship, it is creating some serious problems domestically. We are having a civil war. Well, the Cold War is happening. Like I said, when a gun is pointed at one of the countries in Asia, that gun is fired back on us, Asian Americans. And if we want peace, the road to peace is to urge for peace. No more bullying of our seniors. I like that. There is a very nice article written on the New York magazine. Actually, they're just an online publication. It's called the Independent. A Chinese woman, I think she's Chinese, her name is Rachel Fu. I just love what she said. And so I'm going to end my discussion with her suggestion. As an Asian American, she's saying that we have 2 paths for which we can move on to face this racism and violence and hatred directed at us from the masses. She said, 1, you can go the American way. You can adopt Americanism and go the Andrew Yang way. You remember Andrew Yang? He's a mayoral candidate for New York, and he was a presidential candidate. He wrote an op-ed, which he said, in order for us to reduce this anti-Asian racism, be more American, be the good American, be better than the average American, in essence, be the stereotype American. Well, what did you say? Yeah, I agree. Or you can, and what that happens is that think of Second World War, when the Japanese soldiers, when the Japanese Americans were fighting in Europe, and in fact the 442nd Infantry won the most medals of any infantry. When they came home, their family was in concentration camp. Just remember that. Now the other path is, I like that, don't be passive. And to say no to the war, to no to any war. Wars are bad, wars are horrible. wars are just devastating. They destroy, they kill, they turn human being into animals. We don't want any war. But under Biden, and I will lump them together, Trump and Biden, both are pushing us to war with China. And we cannot handle that. We cannot do that. We must fight back. And so I founded a group called the Pivot to Peace after my retirement. Our objective is to promote cooperation, negotiation, and diplomacy, and not confrontation and war with China or any other country. I hope that we'll all join together. So if you will join me, look up peacepivot.org, sign up, or go to codepink.org. It's a women's organization, and they are passing out a petition. They are saying, China is not our enemy, no to Cold War. So please sign that petition. So thank you so much for inviting me to speak. I think I've overused my time. Thank you for joining with you. You make me feel younger, and so I like that. And I really appreciate you being here. So repeat after me. Stand up, speak up.